This is Aaron Geldert here. I'll be demonstrating for you today the features of my new plugin to the control panel. This is a plugin made in Will Perkel's RackAFX software along with coding in Visual Studio and C++, and these graphics are made in SkinMan software along with some presets. So here you can see the graphical user interface, the GUI, and on the right side you can see the block diagram of the signal flow. I'll just overview quickly what the functionality is here, and then I'll give you a demonstration in just a moment with some audio playing. So we can tell that our controls here are pretty straightforward. It's a pretty utilitarian plugin where we've got some basic input and output controls along with this auto panner. So the first thing that comes in from our stereo inputs is going to be it's going to engage an MS decoder. It's going to engage a mid-side decoder, which will tell it if we want to sum or subtract our right and left channels in order to get a decoded right and left channel. If we have mid-side audio, that'll give us stereo left and right. And if we actually put in stereo left and right channels, it'll give us MS. So there's a simple button to enable that if you'd like. Next, there's a stereo width input control. This is controlling if we want our input to be mono or stereo or anywhere in between from 0 to 100%. Again, I'll demonstrate this more in just a moment. The next stage is our pan controls. Our pan calculation depends on a lot of things. We have a pan knob, which will act exactly as you'd expect. But we also have the option to engage an auto panner that will automate where our pan values are essentially moving from left to right. That is all controlled by this LFO object here. It's going to be able to have a rate set for it, either by a knob or by the beats per minute subdivision of the song. It'll have a waveform selector from triangle, sine, or saw. It'll have a depth control, which is telling you how much it's modulating. It has an inversion option, and of course you can disable it if you'd like. All this pan will be, of course, affecting your audio, but it also show up in a little meter. That's this little green and gray thing in the middle. That'll show you where from right to left your panning is going on. Next, we have our gain controls. This is all pretty straightforward. It should be intuitive. The volume goes from -60 dB to +12, and the mute acts as you'd expect. And there's also phase inversion controls. That will either flip the phase of the left or right or both channels if you'd like. It may not be super useful unless you had audio coming in with something messed up in its phasing. So of course you have the controls to fix it right there. You also have a channel selector, which is just telling you what you're listening to on the output. Basically it's saying you can either listen to the stereo mode, which is probably the most useful, or you can isolate and just listen to the left channel or just listen to the right channel if you'd like. Finally, there are 3 output meters here, these analog VU meters in the center. That's showing us our left or right or the sum for the output, and that is the end of our signal flow. Then we get our outputs left and right. So without any further ado, I'll go into RackAFX here and pull up our custom GUI. So I'll be playing a little bit of brass music here to demonstrate some of the basic features. Just follow along. Volume, mute, and pan should all do exactly what you'd expect. So an interesting thing about a pan knob, though, is that it doesn't just move from hard left, which would be -1. And you'll be able to see that on the meter here. But it can actually move beyond hard panning. Now that might sound kind of strange. But what it's doing when it moves out to -1.2 or up to +1.2 is it's actually using constant power panning algorithms to continue the motion of the pan all the way around, so it's like it's wrapping around behind your head. This means that while there is right channel coming back in when you're at far left, it's not actually going to sound the same as almost far left. It's going to sound like it wrapped further around your head because the right channel will now be phase inverted. So basically we're able to pan outside of our regular stereo field of hard left to hard right, and we're able to get a little extra room for our auto panner to function, which I'll demonstrate again in one moment. Next I'll demonstrate what the width control does. You can probably hear right now it's stereo. There's trumpets out on the right side, there's trombone and French horn on the left side. But we can collapse that down to mono right here. When it's collapsed down to mono, it's basically saying that the left channel is being panned to the center, and the right channel is being panned to the center using, again, constant power panning algorithm calculations through the whole thing so that the overall level should not be changing. Next to the MS input. Again, this is not MS audio, but it works exactly the same from stereo to MS or from MS to stereo. We should hear when we engage this that the mid, or the stuff that is the same between the left and right channels, should move to the left. And the sides, or the differences between the left and right channels, should move to the right. So we'd expect the tuba probably to be very prominently on the left. We expect maybe the outer trumpets and the trombone to be out on the right side as soon as I engage this. So this is normal stereo. So hopefully that was audible for you. I can demonstrate that one more time with our next audio as well. I'll just move ahead and go to that. This will be a bit of some drums playing. As you can probably hear that it's a normal jazz drum kit. If we engage the MS decoder, the kick, which was in the center, is now on the far left because that would be a mid channel. And then the stuff on the sides is not a lot, but it's mainly just the cymbals and stuff that would not line up dead center in our image. Now I'll demonstrate what the auto panner can do. I'll actually go back to my first example, that might be better. We can of course turn on the auto panner. We can tell it what rate and depth to operate at. When they're at 0 it won't engage because there's nothing to do. We can change what shape it's operating at. A triangle wave will just move smoothly, linearly from left to right, whereas a sine wave will kind of swing and stay left, swing and stay right a little longer. And a saw wave will smoothly move from one side to the other and then jump back to the other side. So let's engage our auto panner, give it a little bit of rate, and then give it a depth. So we can see on our pan meter that's moving smoothly left to right and back, right? If we increase the depth, it'll swing far left to far right. If we lower the depth, it'll just hover around wherever our pan location is. That's important to know, is that if we move our pan location, it's now going to start panning based on that center location given on this knob. So we can move it over to the right. Now we're just panning around that location. That works because our auto panner is based on a low frequency oscillator, an LFO. It's giving us a bipolar output, telling us, positive values above 0 or negative values below 0, which are operating around our pan knob. So they still work together even when the auto panner is engaged. Next, I'll demonstrate the other waveforms you can get. Bring it back to the center here. Increase the depth. So that's our triangle wave moving smoothly side to side. A sine wave, as I said, will kind of swing faster through the middle. And a saw wave will move from one side to the other and then jump over to the other side. For this reason, it's useful to have an option to invert what direction it's traveling in. That's what this invert knob will do. So right now it's moving smoothly left to right. If I invert it, it'll be moving smoothly right to left. Finally, there's also this BPM sync control, which is telling you that you can sync up your tempo for a song, and it'll engage at some subdivision that makes musical sense. So I'll pull up this mix here where it's got a tempo of 80 beats per minute. Let's take a listen. Turn off the auto panner for now. So if I wanted the auto panner to be operating at a half note subdivision where it'd spend, it would hit the sides only on each half note. I can gauge that here. Turn the depth up. Use a sine wave to demonstrate.
I don't pay taxes, 'cause I've never filed. I don't do business.
So you can probably hear it was hitting each side on roughly beats 2 and 4 there. Let's try with a quarter note next. Left, right, left, right. Eighth note. Triplet eighth. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
Be a rambler
16th.
from the 7 dials.
And 32nd.
I don't pay taxes, 'cause I've never filed.
So as you can probably hear, it gets pretty crazy up at 32nd note subdivisions. And actually, I think that lower frequencies of auto panning make more sense. For that matter, you may notice that it's actually not going an entire waveform, an entire wavelength cycle when it's happening at a half note subdivision. It's only moving to one side and back. It's not actually doing a full hertz cycle. That's just, again, because I think for most normal beats per minute tempos that we have, it makes more sense to only bother doing half a cycle and hitting one side on our panner rather than hitting both sides on our panner. You may have also noticed that because of this, the rate knob is anti-log scaled. It goes up to 20 hertz at a maximum, starts all the way down at 0 hertz where nothing would happen. Because mostly a low frequency sweeping motion might be most useful, I would think. It's anti-log scale, so you can spend a lot of time in getting those really slow, nice sweeping motions from side to side. So next thing that we'll just quickly overview is the output controls, which are pretty straightforward. We're just going to be able to listen to the stereo output most of the time, or isolate the left, or isolate the right. So that's basically it. That's what the control panel can do for you. It'll have a lot of basic features. It'll have a lot of a little bit more complicated aspects to it in a sense, but it's a pretty utilitarian level plugin. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me about it. The files should be available on my website to download. So thank you. Hope you enjoy.